What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this video. Today we're going to carry over with SOC level 2 track, and we're going to take a look at Hunt Me Payment Collectors Challenge. So the Payment Collectors is a challenge where you will demonstrate your threat hunting skills. The challenge includes a couple of questions, around maybe 12 or 13 questions. We're required to answer these questions using threat hunting skills. So, before we start, let me guys give you a little bit of summary or reminder about threat hunting. So remember guys, in the previous videos we talked about threat hunting. We discussed what is threat hunting, compared threat hunting to incident response, and we also mentioned that threat hunting is a proactive rather than reactive as an incident response. Additionally, we talked about the methodology of hunting threats using the cyber kill chain. So remember that cyber kill chain starts with initial access and then execution. The attacker then works on evading the defenses and the AV solutions to establish persistence, and lastly to communicate with the C2 server. So using this series of steps outlined in the cyber kill chain, we can hunt threats based on the stage or based on our knowledge on where the attacker is in the cyber kill chain. That all depends on the scenario. Let's examine the scenario given in the video, in the challenge. So in the challenge room here, we're told that a corporate finance or senior finance director from SwiftSpend received an email. As you can see, this is the email. Looks like an attachment. The attachment contained an invoice. And the invoice is urging the senior finance director to process it and pay it on before the due date. So what did the finance director do? They forwarded the invoice, downloaded the attachment, and opened it to take a look at the contents of the attachment. So what happened next? You know what happens next. The machine got compromised, meaning the senior finance director's machine got compromised, and now we need to investigate what happened. So we're not gonna investigate their machine, okay? We are going to investigate the logs given by the incident response team. So we know now that there is a machine that's compromised. So probably here we are either in the defense evasion or persistence. So it looks like now the attacker is here. The attacker now got access, executed the payloads through the invoice, and now probably if the invoice slipped through it, we can conclude that it has actually evaded the defenses. So the attacker can be either here or here, defense evasion or persistence. Okay, in order to investigate what happened, we're going to use the logs given from the Windows machine, the compromised Windows machine. As you can see, we are using Elastic Stack to investigate the events. The logs or the events are stored under WinLogBeat index. And as you can see, I set the time to be last 15 years, and now we're going to start the investigation. Before we start the investigation, we can take a look at the available fields. So we can investigate using, as you can see, the station IP, the station port, the domain, the DNS names. We can also use the event ID, which is going to be very useful to investigate certain kind of events. We have file filters such as the file hash, the file path. So we have all takes to investigate the event and see what happened. Okay, let's start the challenge. The first question is, what was the name of the zip attachment that Michael downloaded? So remember that Michael infected their workstation by downloading an attachment. We're required to find out the name of the zip attachment. All attachments, most of the attachments come in zip format, malicious ones. In order to extract them, we're going to use a zip tool to maybe unzip or WinRAR to extract the attachment. So it is in zip format. To find it, we're gonna have to use some of the available filters here. So probably we're gonna use, remember that the zip attachment was downloaded while Outlook was opened as per the scenario. So here in the scenario, the senior finance director was checking the emails in Outlook, and as you can see, it is in bold text because we have to pay attention to the fact that he was using Outlook. So the zip attachment was downloaded from Outlook. So here we're gonna have to look for maybe a filter or a process field for the process name. So we have a process name. We're gonna use process name. Outlook, and see how many events we have. So we have around 28 hits. We're gonna need to narrow this down a little bit more. So we're gonna add file name. So we have a field named for file name, and we're going to include all the zip attachments. We're gonna use a wildcard and zip. And we have 2 hits. Okay, that is great. Now we're gonna need to sort out the columns here. So from here we're gonna add process name to the list of the columns. Okay, and we're gonna need to add the file path, file name, and add the path. It might come useful, and if there is the hash, file md5 hash. Okay, there is no value. Let's try with the other hash. Also there is no value, that's fine. I would also like to try with maybe the event ID, event type, okay. So we're gonna have to choose from this. Choose the event code. Okay, great. So the question is asking what is the name of the zip attachment. We can see it is here, so we're gonna have to answer with this. This is the name of the invoice. So first, the finance director downloaded the invoice as a zip file from Outlook. What was the contained file that Michael extracted from the attachment? Okay, so probably here Mike, after downloading the attachment, he wanted to extract it to view the contents. So you're gonna have to find out the name of the file contained in the zipped file here. So to do that, let's see here, we're gonna need to maybe play with this a little bit. Now we know the invoice name. Let's search for all the events where the invoice name is used or mentioned, because probably when he extracted the contents, okay, all the events created after that action contain the name of the file that was extracted. In our case, it is the invoice. We're gonna update. And we have 12 hits related to this file. See here, it's gonna be pretty useful if we sort this in an ascending order. So let's select all to new. Okay, as you can see, we see the process name as Outlook, and the invoice zipped file, and the file path, and then we have another one. And lastly here, we have this event, which also highlights the zip file. And after then we have the process name is Explorer. Okay, and we have a new file named Payment Invoice PDF. And we can see the file path as well. Look at this. The payment invoice file that we see here, it is under the same path of the original zip file. Okay, and it was actually, it shows up immediately after the after downloading the zip file, which means that it's highly likely that this is the file that was extracted. Okay, also take a look at the process. Usually when you extract a file, the process involved, in addition to the software you used for the extraction of the contents of the zip file, you have the Explorer on Windows, and it comes immediately after Outlook. So highly likely this is the name of the file that was extracted. We can continue further down the road. We can see the same file name, and after that we see PowerShell. Okay, so probably this is the correct answer. What was the name of the command line process that spawned from the extracted file attachment? So here we're gonna have to click back on the name of the attachment and then click on surrounding documents. Again, load up 20. We're gonna scroll back. Okay, we see here the PDF file, and scrolling a little bit further, we can see the PowerShell process, and under process command line, we can see that the command exists here. We can just expand on this further, and I click on JSON, and here we can see the full command executed by the PowerShell process. So it used the cmdlet to download a file from this address. It is in GitHub, and the name of the PowerShell process, or the PowerShell reverse shell, is PowerCat. That is the name. Now, are we required to supply the name or the URL? It looks like we are required to supply the full URL, so we're gonna have to copy this. Okay, what port did the workstation connect to? What port did the workstation connect to the attacker on? Okay, so after executing or after downloading PowerCat, now PowerCat is a process that was created, a script that was created to establish a reverse shell. So after downloading the script, it's supposed to connect to the attacker. Here you can see the command that was followed here we can see a semicolon indicating that there is a command chaining, and after the semicolon we can see another command being executed. The command uses PowerCat, okay, to connect to this address and on this port. Probably this is the C2 server. You're gonna have to copy the port and answer that. So that is the port the attacker, actually this is the port the attacker used to establish his C2 server. He is listening on, or the attacker's C2 server listening on this port. What was the first native Windows binary the attacker ran for system enumeration after obtaining remote access? Okay, good. Now let's go back a little bit. So we can see the attacker here, or the finance director, the victim between parentheses, downloaded the zip file. After extracting the zip file, there was shortcut file to PDF, and after opening the PDF, a PowerShell process was spawned to download a reverse shell from the C2 server. Now after downloading the PowerShell, and now the attacker has complete control over the machine, they will want to establish persistence. So they will go through privilege escalation, defense evasion to accomplish this. And that's the purpose of this question. To find out the Windows binary name, okay, the attacker ran for system enumeration after obtaining remote access. Before the attacker attempts to escalate privileges and establish persistence, they will want to obtain information about the system. So they will use they will do what is known as system enumeration. Now, system enumeration can be done using several tools. Some of it are downloaded by the attacker, and some of it come with Windows. So that's why we're asked to find the name of the Windows binary the attacker used, its native Windows binary. The attacker used for enumerating system information. Probably it is system info or some other tool, but we're gonna have to confirm our theory. To answer this question correctly, we're gonna have to be familiar with the system tools that are used for enumeration in Windows. Previously, we covered this, okay, and we covered how to find indications of the attacker using native system tools to enumerate or to perform system enumeration and maybe later data exfiltration and persistence. I'm gonna turn to my notes here, and we're gonna have to use this query. I'm gonna copy this first, and we're gonna explain it. So we are filtering for event ID 1. Event ID 1 in Windows is process creations. When the attacker used a native Windows binary, okay, when they execute the binary, a process is created for that binary. That's why in the events, there will be process creation events. So we use this criteria first, and we add another criteria by using the and use the process name. So here a list of the native system tools in Windows that can be used to retrieve information about the system. For example, we have the whoami. Whoami retrieves information about who is the current logged in user. Hostname, the name of the workstation. Net, system info, IP config. All of these are tools to retrieve system information. We're gonna update and try. And we have 7 hits. Looks like we have 7 hits. And as you can see, the timestamp, we have the events ordered in an ascending order. So the first binary that was executed or used is the system info, as I guessed earlier. It was used to retrieve information about the system. So probably, I hope this is the correct answer. Let's see. And that's correct. What is the URL of the script that the attacker downloads to enumerate the domain? Let's do that again. What is the URL of the script that the attacker downloads to enumerate the domain? To answer this question, we're gonna have to go back a little bit further in time. Remember that the attacker has downloaded a reverse shell. The reverse shell name was PowerCat, and it was used to establish a connection to the attacker's C2 server on port 19282. So basically, through this connection, the attacker is executing now system commands to retrieve information about the compromised system. Now, in order for the attacker to retrieve more tools, probably we're going to assume that they will use again PowerShell. So we're going to have to go back, and here I'm going to filter for process name as PowerShell. Okay, we have around 30 hits, and here there are no values shown. The comments are not shown here. But we're gonna have to go through this. See here the use of Power View. Scrolling down. Okay, this is the reverse shell. Now it could be that the attacker used the same script to retrieve further scripts or tools to the system. It's just an assumption that has to be confirmed. And we can see this file named exfiltration. Probably we're going to come to this later, but we're going to have to go back and inspect this. We're going to click on expand and view the surrounding documents. Click on 20 or add 20 events. Remember to start with the oldest. The time order is very important in these things. Okay, so we have Power Review from here, and we have all these commands. Let me start with this one. Oh, no. Okay, click on JSON response and see the actual command. So here the attacker is retrieving the PowerCat script. Okay. Now we moved past this. We're gonna have to go back after Power Review, starting from Power Review. Let's see the events after the Power Review was downloaded, or the commands executed after Power Review was downloaded. So we're going to click on this and click on the JSON response, check these out. So it's the same command. Okay. And we have the same command as well. Let's scroll a little bit further. Up. Okay, look at this. Look at this one. So here, if we take a look at more details about this event, click on JSON response, and we see here pipeline execution details for command line. This is the message: invoke web request, URL, HTTPS, and look at this. Power Review, a script known for Windows to perform Windows system enumeration, was downloaded, okay, and sent to and saved as Power Review PS1. It was downloaded by using PowerShell. So you might be asking, was this process, namely Power Review, downloaded using the previous one? No, it was downloaded using PowerShell, but not necessarily by using the old script that we saw earlier, Power Review PS1. This one is a little bit different from this one. This one is from PowerShell Empire, but the source of this one was coming from different URL. Okay, so if we go back, we're gonna have to highlight this event exactly, and back to more details. We can take a look at the table view as well, but I'm more comfortable seeing the JSON response. Anyway, let's continue with this. So it is pipeline execution, and this is the PowerShell command line value. It is downloading the Power Review, and the full URL is actually different as said earlier. It is from PowerShell Empire. So we're gonna have to copy this and supply it as the answer. Oops, wrong. Oh, actually we're gonna have to remove this because it's not part of the URL, it's the full command. And now to be correct. What was the name of the file share that the attacker mapped to Michael's workstation? So right now we are in the attacker's shoes, okay? We are using Power Review to enumerate system information. So the attacker, after downloading the Power Review from PowerShell Empire, they actually started or executed the script to retrieve the system information. One thing they retrieved is the file share running on the compromised machine. We have to find the name of the file share that the attacker mapped to Michael's workstation. So following the download of this script, probably we're going to have to see another event that highlights the execution of Power Review. So what we have to do, we can go back and use Power View PS1, the name of the file, as a folder. Now here we have around 259 hits. So it can be overwhelming to go through all of these events. So we're gonna have to find a shortcut. Let's go back to the question. What was the name of the file share that the attacker mapped to Michael's workstation? We might be convinced that the attacker used the script to perform some of the enumeration on the system, but we have also to assume that the attacker has not performed or relied on this tool to retrieve all the system information. Remember that from the previous question, we know that the attacker relied at some point on native Windows binaries to find or to enumerate the system. So the attacker used a hybrid method to perform system enumeration using native Windows binaries and using his own tools, or using most common tools to perform system enumeration. So if we assume that Power View was used to retrieve the name of the shares, here we have around 259 hits to go through. Okay, that's not bad, but we're gonna have to see if there is another shortcut. Let's now have another assumption. What if we assume that the attacker used system tools to find the name of the share? You're gonna have to go back here and use this again. Let's see if there is any network tool that can be found. So system information used to retrieve information about the system. HOMI information about the user. And we have net. Now net is a tool used to retrieve information about the network. Probably IPv6, IPv4, and in some instances file share. Now if we take a look here, starting from the first event. So in the first event here of using net, you can see scrolling down. So this is the process creation event, highlighting the use of net, and here we can see the exact command, net and user. That's it. Okay, the next one, local group. Now this one is interesting. Let's look at this one. Scrolling down. Okay, take a look at the process arguments, and we can see the attacker used net to map the shares on the server. The file share name is, or the file share server name is file server 01, and that is the share name, SSF Financial Records. That's the answer for the question. What directory did the attacker copy the contents of the file share to? So the attacker accessed now the file share, and they will want to copy the contents of this file share. Let's inspect the events that follows after. Scrolling down, and here we can see that the attacker is deleting something, and then we don't have anything after. Alright, to find out what he has copied, or what is the name of the file he has copied the share into, we're gonna have to inspect again the surrounding documents. Expand to 15. We're gonna go back. So here we are. You're gonna see what comes after. So what comes after is use of PowerShell again. But we don't see any instances of copying the share to another file. Let's take a look at this one. The one that comes exactly after the event that we saw earlier. and it is a regular partial script execution. Okay, so to find the answer for this question, we're going to have again to rely on the assumption that the attacker used system tools to perform the enumeration and later on other operations. So there is a tool named RoboCopy. Let's see if this tool was used to copy the files. We have 4 hits on this one. So here let's add the file name, the path, the process name, command line. I don't know why they... Okay, so here again we start from an ascending order. So that's the first instance of using our RoboCopy. And then the attacker used the tool later on, and we can see this. Let's take a look at this one. Take a look at this. So the attacker, he used RoboCopy to copy this, or to copy the share to this path. So that was the path used by the attacker to copy the entire contents of the share. Okay, what was the name of the Excel file the attacker extracted from the file share? This one is similar to the first question. Or the second question, what was the contained file that Michael extracted from the attachment? We can answer the same way. So here in the filter or the search bar, we can type file name and put in the extension of Excel file. One hit, that's it. And probably this is the answer. Client portfolio summary, that's the name of the file the attacker copied. What was the name of the archive file that the attacker created to prepare for the exfiltration? What was the name of the archive file that the attacker created to prepare for the exfiltration? Now it might be vague to, the question might be vague here, but the answering this question is pretty much simple. You're gonna have to look for file creation events. Why? Because it is an archive that the attacker created to prepare for the exfiltration. So here there is a file creation event involved. We can look for win log event ID. So we have 20 hits on file creation events. We're looking for an archive and file name, and we can use zip. So we have one file created, and the name is pretty much self-explanatory that this is the file related to the question we are answering. Okay, now this one is interesting. What is the MITRE ID of the technique that the attacker used to exfiltrate the data? To find the answer for this question, we have to go to the official page of the framework of the MITRE editing at CK. Highlight the exfiltration tactic, click on it, and we can see all of the techniques. We have around 9 techniques under exfiltration. And as you can see, for every technique, there is the name and there is the ID. We're required to find the correct ID. To find the correct ID, we're going to have to underpin what was the exact technique used to exfiltrate the data. So we now know that attacker has created a zip file. The zip file contains all of the contents he's willing to exfiltrate. Specifically, the content he's exfiltrating is the contents of the file share or the file server. Technically, he's exporting the financial records. So the financial records are being exfiltrated, but using what technique? Are they being exfiltrated using DNS or using encrypted channel, non-encrypted channel? As you can see, for every technique there is an associated ID. So you're gonna have to find out what is the technique the attacker used. To find this, we're gonna have to find the events surrounding this. After creating the zipped file, the attacker probably has attempted to exfiltrate this file. This will work. ID, and we're looking at ID 3, indicating network connections. Here the processes that we have are the server host and PowerShell. Now server host cannot be used to perform data exfiltration, so we only have the only option left is PowerShell, being the process used to perform the exfiltration of data, but we cannot see any relevant information about what is the command used, what are the arguments used to perform the exfiltration. So we're gonna rule out PowerShell as being a suspect process of performing data exfiltration. So if the attacker has not used PowerShell to perform the exfiltration, probably he either exfiltrated data using file sharing sites such as Google Drive, Dropbox, or maybe he relied on system tools again. Let's focus on these two probabilities. The first probability is the attacker downloading or uploading the shares or the files into file sharing sites using the HTTP protocol. But we cannot see this here because this means that the attacker has to use some sort of Google Chrome or maybe a browser or other process to perform the upload here. We cannot see any network connection detected, so we're going to use when event 1. When event 1 indicates a process being created. Okay, so a process created event will show us all the processes created, and then we can decide whether the attacker used a file sharing site to upload the exfiltrated data or relied on native system tools such as maybe NSLookup or other networking tools. You can click on update. Okay, now we sort old to new. Okay, we're gonna rule these out. Why? Because it is the timestamp. Remember that the file or the zip file created for the extraction was created around the 44 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna scroll all the way down and rule these out. Okay, so here, depending on the timestamp, this is where, or this is around the time the attacker attempted or started to create the exfiltration. So here, as you can see, he started to copy the contents from the file server, and he used our copy or robocopy to copy the information. And here we can start to scroll down a little bit slowly. Okay, we can see NSLookup here. NSLookup used, and we can see here, guys, an encoded string. This raises suspicion because NSLookup is a tool used for performing DNS lookup. Okay, now usually system administrators use NSLookup, but not in this fashion. This is definitely a suspicious use of NSLookup. And we can see several uses of NSLookup here in several events, and all of them are encoded. Now this is a right off the bat confirmation that this is the tool used for the exfiltration. If we go back here to decide what is the correct tactic for using NSLookup, it is not automated exfiltration, it is exfiltration over alternative protocol. And we can see sub-techniques such as symmetric encrypted, asymmetric encrypted, and unencrypted non-C2 protocol. Probably it is this one. I'm gonna have to copy this and try. And it is correct. What was the domain of the attacker's server that retrieved the exfiltrated data? Let's go back here and highlight the first event of NSLOOKUP. Okay. Here we can see the process arguments. NSLOOKUP was used, and this is the text string. And we can see a domain name, hard or has for hardware IO. Probably this is the correct domain name. And the last question here. The attacker exfiltrated an additional file from the victim's workstation. Okay, what is the flag you receive after reconstructing the file? This one is a little bit tricky, but we have clues here. We know that the attacker used NSLOOKUP to exfiltrate the data. Let's rely on this assumption, or this fact, not assumption here. As said by the question, as stated in the question, we have to reconstruct the file. So probably we're gonna have to find the file from the NSLOOKUP commands. Now, reconstructing this additional file requires us to go through all of these commands. Specifically, requires us to decode the base64 string shown here. So we have one here, a base64 string. If we decode this, maybe we can decode this using CyberChef. And use from base64. And we have this. So we have to do the same for all of the commands. This might become overwhelming if we have more than 58 hits. And it is overwhelming actually to go through every single command and decode every single base64 encoded string. So what to do here? If you go back to the question gives you a hint. It says an additional file. So all of the starting events here are related to the original files the attacker that intended to extract at first, the financial records. So if we scroll down, we maybe have to go scroll down a little bit further in time and start decoding. After the attacker finished extracting the files that he had as goals first, he might start to extract additional files later on. So let's assume that it is the last one, which is the last one. If you decode this one, okay, let's decode this. Okay, so here it looks kinda missing. If we take a look at other ones around this one, so we decoded this one, let's decode this one. And this one gives you the flag, but look, it is kind of, it misses the closing braces. So this leads us to the conclusion that these are fragmented files. So the files were exfiltrated in a fragmented fashion. So every base64 string does not reflect the original name, file name, or the contents of the file. The files are fragmented over multiple commands using base64. So probably if we add this here, it will give you the correct full flag. Okay, that was it, guys.